First and foremost, I am a horrible introvert, so this is terrifying to me. But who I am, as I was introduced, I'm the engineering manager of application framework at Magic Leap. My family prefers that I use the owner of the universe on my business card. Not entirely sure why, but they say it's a lot cooler than application framework. Typically, what I do day to day is build up the experiences that allow someone like Helio to focus on building their content rather than their delivery. So to better give you context of what I'm going to talk about, let me first explain who I am from a professional level. Before working at Magic Leap, I actually worked for a company building up settings, out-of-box experience, system applications for something you might remember called BlackBerry. Kudos to any of you, by the way, if you actually still own one. I think I have mine. The reason I was brought on to Magic Leap for this is that we wanted to build up a spatial desktop that provided a platform for this wide audience of developers that were functionally building their apps in 2D, that were going to make things that were modal in nature, not necessarily, that were modal in nature and not necessarily destination apps. For example, you don't want to build up a weather app that is a single immersive experience. It's quite silly in my opinion because it doesn't play well with your space. There's no contextual interaction with it. What is the landscape? Well, first and foremost, landscape is one of the things under the helm of the universe that I'm responsible for. It is what we're internally calling the spatial desktop. As you can see here, Helio would be one of the things that would be nested as what we call a prism. Prism is a volumetric representation of what you're more familiar with on a desktop as a window. It holds your content, it has depth, it can be completely 2D in nature if you want it. It can have things pop out, such as objects that would give more of a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, nuance to your space. But what I really want to explain is none of this existed when I joined. Originally, what we wanted to do was to design a revolutionary OS. But what did actually a revolutionary OS meant? Well, as I mentioned before, I feel that spatial computing is the ideal channel to represent contextual interaction. Your content should persist. It should be able to change dynamically and take on sort of the context, the aforementioned context that gives real life such depth and charm. So with that in mind, what did we want to do to allow you as the creator to focus on content instead of actually delivery? Not every single person here wants to actually describe movement in 3D space. They want to be able to focus on developing maybe a virtual assistant, but not actually how I get that virtual assistant to sit on my coffee table. So creating a landscape app. These are what you call the prisms that I had mentioned before. Most of what I do is not actually the inside. That's what I expect all of you to do via Helio, stuff like that. I know I have the easy job here. It's like, do as I say, not what I do. But everything that I'm involved with is the actual user interaction paradigm of getting that to the coffee table, having it be able to interact with all the room mapping technology, and be able to sort of allow you to say if you want to do the learning tree. That may be trademarked, so I wouldn't actually advise you use the learning tree. You can focus on that. Now, the important things to know is that what do you actually get to use when creating a landscape app? Because I'm not going to tell you how to develop in C++ or the Helio platform or anything like that. The important one, which is very unique, almost novel, that you wouldn't get on a normal desktop, is multimodal input. Now, this might be the winning ticket for you if you're involved in HCI. You have head pose, you have eye gaze tracking, 6DoF with the actual control, hand gestures, as well as some levels of object recognition that you get to play with. Now, the reason this is important is because when you have a mouse and keyboard, they're very effective at what they do. But you're already sort of locked into the experience that you can deliver to a person. with this, think about it now. As I said, I'm not the ideas guy. I'm the very practical, boring engineer that allows the really cool people like Jen and others to actually build up these experiences, but there's nothing stopping you from, say, reinventing the weather app. Do you want a simple weather app that's a screen on your wall? Or do you effectively want a weather widget that can walk around your table, can put up an umbrella, react to it, sort of make you excited to put on the device and come downstairs? Actually, that is still something I've yet to see, is what app will have me turn around after I've left for work to pick up my device. I know I have a few for my cell phone, but that's something that you as the creator really need to dig deep and think about what will be that for the AR. Computer vision abstracted. Now this one I think is really important. For you as a developer, there's a lot of things you're not going to want to do. You're not going to want to have to figure out how to map your room or detect surfaces or figure out what content persistence actually means. At a very, very high level, the idea of having a digital representation of your world we'll call a map. Within the map, you'll have sort of these points that we've designated as things we recognize. Then you'll have to decide, do I want to save it to here? Do I move it to the next one? And so on. If you're building a landscape app, you literally just have to remember the ID of your prism. That's all. I restore it for you. I make sure it moves with you. I make sure that when you turn on the device, it's recognized, put back in place. Again, something that not everyone wants to do, and it's sort of giving that stepping stone to allow you to focus on the experience. The other thing, as I mentioned, is sort of the meshing. The landscape, unlike some AR apps, though I'm not saying all do this, is we don't actually have a bake step for the mesh. We are constantly updating the world around you, and we take that into consideration. We occlude content effectively so that if you have a coffee table and it comes in later, we will recognize it. We'll make sure that it doesn't sort of detract from the experience. We also, in an upcoming feature, will be offering the option for you to enable collisions with your prism. So if you want your prism to not be able to be pushed through this digital representation of your world, you can do this. Now, the marketing people will probably skin me if I give sort of the exact details, but just let me know. We already know this internally. We actually report this information to the app, so if you're more of a engineering type, you can already do sort of procedural mapping, procedural pathing to be able to have your application walk along, say, a coffee table. But for you as the creator, if you're more comfortable in Helio, just put it this way, that you can advise your audience to actually place on the table without having to describe how to do that. So the important thing that you should take from this is that there's 3 ways to build it, and that you don't necessarily need to bring your compiler or do a crash course in linear algebra to be able to approach it. First and foremost, as we've heard from Genevieve and Damien and Chris, is that you have the Helio web platform. That is, as you as the creator can just do simple web markups or, build it more authentically into your experience for the website. Next one is native development for C++. This is a little bit more, let's say, the word I'd be looking for, less forgiving. I don't know how many of you are engineers, but I'm not entirely sure whether you want to go into things such as memory management, managing stale pointers, and all the sort of complexities that are sort of strengths of the language. Now, the third one, which I'm very excited about, but we actually haven't released yet, is sort of, if you're familiar, I don't know how many are familiar with scripting languages, or do a lot of you use JavaScript? I'm assuming that there's some familiarity, but if you want to do native development in something like JavaScript, we have a feature called MagicScript, which will allow you to achieve the same feature parity that we will be offering with C++. So, to sort of wrap this all up, the idea behind the landscape is a spatial desktop that is something that can be a stepping stone for you coming from a mobile device such as a phone. You want to port your application over. You want to not really learn all the nuances of what augmented reality is, but you want to at least explore the platform in a safe space. That's one reason. The other one is that we wanted to make it approachable by any and all that want to embrace that contextual interaction with their space without designing it. And overall, we just really strongly believe that this is the future. So please, you as a creator, try this out. Consider how you would reinvent existing applications that exist on the phone that play better with your real world. Don't necessarily sell yourself short and try to port simply your phone app, but really dig deep into that, because I don't think it is a space that's fully defined yet, and that you as the creator have the option, even the privilege, to be able to say that you have set forth those standards. I really appreciate you dealing with my sort of awkwardness. As you can tell, I'm not normally good with public speaking, but hopefully you enjoyed what I talked about, and I will be out there giving demos with Genevieve and others, so if you have any sort of more nuanced questions about what I do, I'll be out there answering them for you. So thank you.